Hello and welcome to Awaken, where we share insights on the connection between science and spirituality for self-discovery, joy, and freedom. I'm your host, Stephanie Rouch, and it is my absolute pleasure to be here with Nischala Joy Devi. She is an international teacher and healer and a highly respected international advocate for teaching yoga and connecting inward. And she has also written a beautiful book on the Yoga Sutras that takes a feminine approach. It is a book that was highly transformative for me a few years ago when I happened upon it. So it is just my pleasure to be here speaking with you. And I would love, Nischala, for you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is such an honor. It's so beautiful. And the work you're doing is very beautiful. Thank you. I'm smiling because I've had a very interesting putting together of a life. I'm going to call it like that. Mm-hmm. And from a very early age, all I wanted to do was serve people. That was my thing. I always wanted to do that. And naturally, it led to a service profession, which was medicine. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that for most people in medicine, it is a service profession, especially those that are constantly working with patients. And I went in with high hopes, and they got dashed pretty soon because I thought we were there to take care of people, and not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually and everything, and to listen to them, because I really still believe that the only one who knows what's wrong with someone is the person, and they know where the imbalance is. They know what they've done differently that they haven't done before, like that. I used to walk 2 miles. Now I can't even walk to the kitchen without pain. So they know. And I saw that no one was paying attention to the patients. No one was asking them anything. And I got pretty disillusioned quickly, but stayed with it, and had some wonderful physicians that I worked with as in training, and also with them. But at a certain point, I saw that it wasn't serving me, and I really wasn't serving it. And I was working in a women's clinic and getting very disillusioned, seeing the same problems coming in over and over and over again. Women being abused, women being mistreated in certain ways, et cetera, et cetera. And I decided that I needed some support. So I started taking yoga classes at the Integral Yoga Institute. Actually, just a very funny, quick story. I was always too tired to cook dinner. I worked very long hours, sometimes 12, 14 hours a day. I was just too tired. I was living in San Francisco, and there was a restaurant just a couple blocks from the clinic where I worked called the Good Karma Cafe. And it was, for me, it was really good karma. And I went in one day and I was sitting, and the benefit of this restaurant, nobody was alone. Nobody sat by themselves. All were big tables that you sat with other people. Mm-hmm. And you just got a feeling of community as well as nourishment when you went in there. And I was sitting across the table one night, when I was completely exhausted from this man. And he looked at me, he said, "You look awful." I said, "Well, thank you." That's really what I want to hear after the end of a very long day. And he said, "You need yoga." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm so busy. I can barely eat lunch. You see, I have to come here for dinner." And he said, "Trust me, you need it." Mm-hmm. And he said, "There's a yoga institute just 2 blocks down. Take yourself in there. You'll thank me for it." I just didn't pay attention to him. I was too busy. And I had studied a little yoga before, but it was physical. And that's not who I am. I'm just not a physical person. So as it turned out, I got a very bad cold, a little bit like the end of this one that's still hanging on. And I couldn't see patients because I would have gotten them all sick. So I had to stay home. And I thought, maybe this is a good time to check out that Integral Yoga Institute. And I went down there, and they were so nice and friendly, and they made me soup. They heard I was sick, and I started on that. And I realized that at that moment, it was very incongruent with the medical work I was doing. It just didn't seem to work together at all. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just continue I had to pay my bills with the medical, and then get more involved with the yoga program. And that's what I did. And interesting, when I went up to the Integral Yoga Institute the first time, I said, I don't want any of this hatha yoga. I want to learn Raja yoga. I want to learn the scriptures. And they said, sorry, you have to learn hatha yoga first. And I know the body. I know how it works. I know what it does. No, you have. So I did. And what I eventually did, as I got more and more involved in yoga and was teaching it then, not just practitioner, but I decided it was time to meld the two, to bring yoga and medicine together and allow people to become empowered to help themselves. Because I knew, after being in medicine as long as I did, that it wasn't just a bug that comes in and invades your system. You're not a victim. You can do something about it. You can eat well. You can exercise. You can have positive thoughts, which change your whole immune system. So as I was coming to this, the university decided they would support me. And I was sitting out on the back lawn of our ashram, and this man came up to me and he said, I'm starting a research program, and I'd like you to come and write all the protocol for the yoga aspect of it. And I'd like you to teach it and eventually train teachers to do it. And I thought, this is exactly what I've been waiting for my whole life. Wow. To really integrate those two together and teach people to take care of themselves instead of having to depend on doctors all the time. I always, even when I go to a doctor, I always say, the first thing I say to them is, you're part of my team. You do not tell me what to do because you just met this body. I've been living with it my whole life. I know how it works. I know it's exceptions, and I know it's diminishes, both of it. So that's how I got involved in that. And that went on for years. And then at the same time, I got involved in the Commonwealth Cancer Program. He was one of my students, and he asked me to help do that. So cancer and heart disease has been something that has accompanied me in most of my adult life, at least the professional aspect, and got to know it pretty well. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's fantastic. And I just want to take a moment to dive in a little bit deeper to this integration that you're talking about between the body and the spirit, or outcomes that you've seen when you are able to integrate these two.
Well, we did a study. We started it in the 80s. It took us 2 years to put it together because we couldn't figure out what to put in it. And we started a study. We took a group of very, very sick cardiac patients. I mean, very sick. And we put them on a vegetarian diet. We had them do very moderate, very easy exercise, just walking, a little walking. We taught them how to talk to each other, how to express their feelings. I mean, it was actually funny because it was a group of older men, usually, from middle age up, who had no idea about feelings. So we made a list on the board. The only thing they couldn't say was, I'm okay or angry. Those two things they couldn't say. They had to pick. They sometimes look at it for 5 minutes, trying to pick out
Mm-hmm.
which emotion is this, and I'd help them. Are you sad? You know,
Mm-hmm.
are you happy? What are you? So anyway, it was expressing the emotion, and also talk about their feelings, which people didn't do. So we had these different components: the diet, the exercise, and then the yoga portion. And when I talk about the yoga portion, I have to be very clear. It was not just asana, it was
Mm-hmm.
everything. It was a full class. We did chanting, we did asana, we did pranayama, deep relaxation, meditation, imagery, all of that. Because if you do a class like that, it incorporates all of you. Whereas if you're just doing an asana class, it's physical. And we want to address the physical, obviously,
Right.
but don't forget about the mind.
Mm.
I remember I was in the Soviet Union at the time with this yoga master who I will not name, and he put one of his students up in headstand, and the student was kind of bent in headstand. The legs were kind of down instead of straight up, and no matter what instruction the master gave, he couldn't straighten his legs. And finally, I thought this was quite clever. The master bent down and whispered in his ear, "Let go of your mind."
Yeah.
The legs
Wow.
went straight.
Wow.
I never forget that. I just stood there and I went, yes, yes. We think it's the body. The limitations come from the mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we started incorporating all this. We had no idea. Actually, my question to be hired was, he looked at me. This was Dr. D. Nornish. He looked at me and he said, do you believe that yoga-based practices can reverse cardiovascular disease? I said, I have no doubt. He said, you're hired. So
Oh, wow.
my job interview. And the thing is, we proved this beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Mm.
The people who had blocked arteries, they started to unblock.
Wow.
And they didn't need bypass surgery. They didn't need stents because they were on this program. And the body itself, see, I don't think we realize how much the body wants to balance itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't want to be out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
So it tries everything it can do to balance itself. And this way you're helping it by doing positive things with the physical
Mm-hmm.
in mind. And also, we can't let go of connecting to the spirit. That's what really happened. People looked and they said, oh, that spirit's within me too.
Wow.
Okay. And their hearts healed. Not a surprise.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And something that's really sticking out as you're talking is this integration, of course, of yes, doing physical exercise, doing breath work, emotional healing. And there's also this sense of having internal authority, where a
Yes,
lot of times
yes,
medicine and science is very much based on an external authority, but in your experience and your own training and your practice, there's such an internal authority. And I would love to hear more about the the evidence that you've come across and your experience of what happens when we do decide that, yes, I have more power than I thought to heal myself.
yeah. That's a really great point because this is what I saw in people.
Hmm.
We see these people come in kind of hunched over and not really feeling happy or really with their body. They got angry at their body, which is
Hmm.
crazy because we have to have it. We need it. And I see over the weeks, they'd stand up straighter,
Mm.
would be kinder to somebody. All the things that we talk about in yoga, but I would see it happening from my very eyes with these people. Not to mention the fact that their angina, their chest pain, started to diminish.
Mhm.
Even diabetes. We had this one man, he would stand up every morning. I just dropped my insulin requirement 10 points. And then at the end of the week, he stood up with his needles. He said, I'm throwing them away. Why? What did he do? Right? He got
Yeah.
to know himself.
Mhm.
He saw who he was. And I'd have this all the time. People would come up to me and they would say something, and I would look at them and they say to me, why is it when you look at me, I feel different than other people? I said, because I see you as a divine being.
Yeah.
I don't see you as a cardiac patient. I
Mhm.
see you as a being of light whose heart happens to have a disease. Do you know what that does to a person? It
Mhm.
changes their whole, they don't even know what to think. No one ever said that to them, right?
Mhm.
So all this changes and it goes back to the cardiologist and he goes, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. It's working.
Mhm.
Let me just very, very quick
Let's hear it.
story. We had retreats and advanced retreats. Advanced retreat means you're coming back for the second time. And I was teaching them, firstly, they were taught to eat vegetarian diet because of cholesterol. Then when they came back again, I started talking about ahimsa and why they eat a vegetarian diet. And this one, I'll never forget this. And I thought, I don't know if they're even getting this. I have no idea. So this one man who's actually a physician, he raised his hand just like that, for one finger. And he said, I never heard of this before. He said, this ahimsa, this non-harming. And he said, but I'm wondering, do you think that's why butterflies land on me now?
Oh. What did you say?
He said, this is going to keep me teaching for another 10 years.
Oh.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Animals know we're not killing them.
Mhm.
So they got it in their own way, in their own time.
Mhm.
And then they became ambassadors and taught other people, which
Mhm.
is such a blessing. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And speaking of this collective nature of experience and even the ability to help someone else by seeing them as divine, this is to me a very feminine approach.
yes.
And there are so many parallels between integrating science with
Mm,
spirit and also
yeah,
integrating the masculine and the feminine. And your Yoga Sutras book just so stunningly gives another lens of how to take what seem like really concrete, strict rules and see them a different way. And there are so many beautiful ones. The one that's touched me that we've talked about is, of course, seeing not being greedy as kind of the masculine interpretation. And for those who have read the Yoga Sutras, they might see that like non-attachment, don't do this, don't do this. And you have this feminine approach of seeing abundance.
yeah.
And I would love for you to go into more depth for the audience members. I think they would be so happy to hear more about this.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Um, it's interesting because the word that comes to me with to, and I don't even know if this is a word, to feminize things, I just made it a word, is allow.
Mm,
And I was trained in yoga very strictly. I was in a Vedic ashram. There were not many wiggle room for the rules. This is how you did it. This is how you pronounce things, period. And I looked around and I didn't see people progressing.
mhm,
I didn't see the joie de vivre that I expected from
mhm,
practicing yoga. So I started to think about it. What's wrong here? Why aren't people? And of course, most of the people were women, as we see in yoga. I don't think we like to be told what to do, not because we're obstinate, but because we realize there's many different ways to do the same thing.
mm.
women, whether we're physical mothers or not,
Mhm.
have the ability to give options, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
if you are a mother, you know that if your child is playing with a lighter and you just take that lighter away, you're going to need earplugs because they're going to scream and they're going to carry on and they're going to do all kinds of things. But if you have a stuffed animal, on the other hand, or something else, you say, "Look, honey, don't you want to play with this?" As they're taking the
Yes.
lighter out of his hand.
Mhm.
Well, I realized if we could employ the same idea to allow in yoga instead of to dictate,
Mm.
maybe we would advance more.
Mm.
Maybe the soft way would work because we haven't really tried it. It's been a masculine approach since the beginning of time, really, in
Mhm.
all religions, not just yoga. So I tried it. I thought I'd see what happened. I tried it first in my groups that I was teaching. They loved it. I thought, okay, let me put it in a book. And then when it came to something like a parigraha, which you're talking about, I realized that most of the yamas and niyamas, as well as the other uh, great teachings, were in the negative. They
Mm.
were telling us what not to do instead of what to do. So
Mhm.
you can tell me to stop that, but then I don't know what to do afterwards. Do I
Yeah.
keep going? So I decided to switch it, to just turn it around, look at it from the other side, which is the positive. So if graha means, or a parigraha means the ability to stop greed, because that's what it really means, greed and stopping the greed.
Mhm.
What would happen if you weren't greedy at all, but were just learning about the concept? And I realized the opposite, or the other side, if you go around and look through the window the other way, is you have an awareness of abundance.
Yeah.
That just immediately takes the greed away. Why would I be greedy if I have 25 pumpkin pies, right? I don't have to worry about someone taking a pumpkin pie.
Mhm.
But if I'm greedy in myself, even if I'm trying not to be, what do I see? Oh, are they going to take that last pie? Oh, what am I going to do if they take it, right? So
Absolutely.
it's a letting go. It's an allowing. It's making room for other people too. And I
Mhm.
think this is one of the problems with the affluent. And living in an affluent country,
Mhm.
I always tell people, go to third world countries. You need to see, especially children, they need to see how other people live.
Mhm.
They need to see that you can be happy with a lot less than we
Mhm.
have. And to me, this is really a parigraha, to to not only have the experience of this cornucopia, but to share it with others.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And to me, that's what niyam is in niyam. It's not just don't be greedy and move on. Yeah. Or don't steal and move on. There are lots of ways to steal. You
Right.
can steal someone's happiness. You can steal someone's ability to learn something. You can steal someone's faith in somebody. So
Mhm.
I think that in the process of translating them into English, they got oversimplified.
Mm.
And I didn't want to complicate them, but I definitely wanted to make them palatable for people. Yeah. And
And,
easier to practice.
as you're talking and as I have read them, there's so much of a soothing and energizing feeling of realizing this isn't yet another box that I need to fit into and get approval from an external authority. This is really a shift internally with my own perspective that I can make.
Yeah.
And that is so important where we have so much external stimulation. So if we're not aware, and I have found myself here too, of really living by a script and creating a standard that I needed for my life that I'm trying to fulfill, that's not even my own standard of satisfaction or happiness, but
Right.
is a standard given by some sort of perceived authority, where then there can be a perception of scarcity,
Mhm.
even if actually, if I were to look within and see what my own desires are, I could experience that abundance. And so I'd love to hear any other thoughts you have.
Yeah, I think you just expressed that very beautifully because nobody is the same as anybody else. And this was the same issue I had in medicine. You can't give a vaccine to a 100-pound person the same dosage as you're giving to a 300-pound person.
Mm.
You just can't do it. And they would look at me like I was crazy, right? And I said, a woman's body is different than a man's body. Duh.
Mhm.
But it also reacts differently. There's a lot of drugs that women can't take.
Mhm.
And none of them have been tested on women. I mean, we could just go on and on and on and on about this. But getting back to what we're trying to express right now is a spiritual path. And this is how I think of it, that in the beginning, everybody takes the freeway, right? So you go to Christianity, you go to Judaism, to Buddhism, to whatever, Hinduism, whatever your path is. But at a certain point, you say, wait a minute, I'm progressing now. I need to take a smaller road. So you may get onto a 4-lane road then,
Mhm.
and then eventually a 2-lane road, and then a 1-lane road, and then you're on a deer track.
Mm.
But you have to do your own because you can't stay with the group because the group is going somewhere where you're not going. And
Mhm.
that's progression on the path. And there's fear that comes when we move off the freeway. Who's
Right.
going to protect us? Who's going to teach us? And that's where the scriptures are very clear. And they say, Kas chit diraha. It means very few are that courageous, right?
Yeah.
Most people want to stay on the freeway. It's too scary. But the
Mhm.
ones that go off, that's where you see the progress.
Mm.
They trust themselves.
Mhm.
And this is one of the things I feel that women have not been taught to do.
Mhm.
Whether in medicine, we're taught, no, that's not a real symptom. Oh, you're crazy. You have cramps. So what? It's not a big deal. Well, you try having them and see what it feels like. And going to work and pretending, or school and pretending that nothing is going on as you're bleeding, right? I was saying to my husband the other day, I wear white pants now because I don't have to worry about it. Like, you're always thinking with white pants that
Yeah.
something could happen. So I
True.
think I think we have to, as women, realize that we have something special, and
Mhm.
that's intuition. And it's very honed, and that's what we can use to see where do we go next? Which part of the path? Do I need more of a bhakti path right now? Do I need more service right now? What do I need? And that's on us now because
Mhm.
we don't have a priest, a rabbi, an imam, um, a Roshi telling us what to do anymore.
Mhm.
In the beginning, yes, we need that. We need it, but not after a while. Yeah.
I have never heard that analogy before, and I can totally feel how that fits with my own experience and my teachers and colleagues. And I'm hoping that you can guide us through an exercise now that we've talked about this. How do we tap into our intuition and connect with our hearts? If you're willing to share something with us
I would
of a
love
way to
to.
get there.
I would love to. And I think the other thing with women, and this is part of the practice we'll do now, is we tend, and I think it's going the other way now, we tend to give out too much,
Uh-huh.
and we have to create a balance, what to keep in and what to let out. And this
Mm.
practice that I'm going to go through right now shows us that we're connected, but we are the source.
Mm.
I think to me, that's a really important thing. Yeah. So shall we begin?
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Okay. So let's just wiggle and get yourself comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, the energy doesn't flow. It's nothing else. It's just energy doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
Relax.
Mm-hmm.
And then wiggle yourself into a comfortable position. Close the eyes. And just for a moment, just go in and take stock. How do your legs feel? Your arms, your back, your neck? Is everything comfortable? And if not, adjust it. Adjust it. And then begin to observe the breath. Don't control it, just observe as it moves in and out of a very still body. Now please bring the awareness to the very center of the heart. Observe a small flame or light representing the true self, the essence of who we are. Allow the breath to return to normal. And as you breathe in with a normal breath, notice that light in the heart brightens. And as you exhale, you're sending out light and love to the world. Inhale, the light brightens. Exhale, sending that out as light and love to the world. And as you continue, feel your entire being filled with that light. From the heart, it expands outward, so every cell is infused with that light. And with each exhalation, you send that out in greater quantity to the world. And continue to breathe in and notice that this body of light is now expanding past the periphery of the physical to form a body of light around you. And each time you inhale, that light brightens. And with each exhalation, you send it out as light and love. And continue to breathe gently and watch this light expand with each inhalation until it becomes the size of the room that you're in. And as you inhale, that light brightens. And with each exhalation, you send it out as light and love. And that light continues to move past the room, out through the windows, doors, and moves through the town, the city, into the rivers and streams, and finally into the oceans, into the air, into the ether, and begins to spread throughout the entire world. And as you inhale, that light brightens and is made available to all. And with each exhalation, you're sending light and love. And those in need feel that, experience it, and join with that light and love. And slowly begin to bring the awareness back to your own heart, the source of that light and love. And know it grows in capacity when you share it and spread that love. It joins with others' lights, and we find light encasing the entire globe. And please begin to take in a few deep breaths and feel yourself coming back to the physical with a tingling in the fingers and toes. And you might find a slight smile has come to the face in sharing that light with all. And slowly open your eyes and become present.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a beautiful exercise. Oh, that was stunning. Thank you. And thank you all to the audience members for joining. How can those tuning in stay in touch with you and hear more about these types of things you're doing?
We have a website, abundantwellbeing.com, with a T, abundant. There's an abundance of well-being. And there's lots of things you can listen to there, see where I'm teaching, what I'm teaching, books I'm writing, things like that. And also I wanted to offer to everyone, if you go to the main page, you'll see a little box and it says free weekly sutra. And if you click on that, every week you'll get a sutra and a little bit of commentary in your inbox. It's a good way to learn the sutras, and it's also those who are teachers can share it with their class in that way. So our joy is having other people learn the sutras. So that's our offering for them.
Yeah. Bite-sized pieces.
Yes.
And we'll make sure to include that in an accessible way here for you all to access.
Thank you.
Nischala.
I just wanted to mention we have a podcast too called A Woman's Gita. So if anyone wants to tune into that, sorry.
Yes. And is that informing some of the content of your new book?
Yes.
Book in progress.
It's got a woman's view of war and how men justify it, and women can't quite justify it the same way. And also, there's no women in the Gita, so we bring a feminine approach to it. And I think many people are enjoying it. So try it out. It's free.
Try it out.
Don't
yes.
Listen. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
it touches a place in most of us. Yeah. Sorry.
Fantastic. I so appreciate the work that you're doing. It has really impacted my life, and what a pleasure for me to be able to speak with you and share this with the audience members. Thank you so much.
It's my joy. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you for tuning in to this amazing interview as part of our Awaken series. I hope you found value. Check out the rest of the interviews on Awaken. Keep tuning in, and please subscribe to Paradigm Expansions to stay in touch, where we are doing more events like this, and we are all about dropping in to your heart, to your true self, to really, truly love your life. Thank you for joining. See you on the next video.